warning before we start the show. And the one of you I'm picking on is you, Mark. Okay. Mark, I have a message for you as we go live. And the message is behave yourself. There we go. Okay, everybody.
Okay.
Ann and Sam, I know you'll be okay. Meeting is live streaming. We are here. Everybody wave hello to LinkedIn, wave hello to Facebook twice, wave hello to YouTube, and wave hello to Voice America. Here we go. Dance with me.
Oh, tango.
Jordan, we can't hear the opening. What happened? Jordan. Does anybody hear it?
I don't.
No.
Jordan. I'm afraid he's going to play it again. Jordan, can you play the opening again, please? We lost all that audio. Are you there? This is live reality ready. Jordan, are you there? Okay, I'm just going to start the show then. Welcome. This is Read My Lips without the opening. I wanted my guest to dance, and somebody must have danced so beautifully that it just knocked out the opening audio. So here we are. I'm Radio Red. It is April 8th. What? This was Eclipse Day. I watched it on live radio, streaming on live radio from all over the country, but we had nothing here. I'm in Loudon, Tennessee, and we were supposed to get an 89% darkening at around 3:06 p.m. Eastern today. It was cloudy, it was rainy, the streets were wet, and it just got, I'd say, about 20% darker than a normal cloudy day, but nothing really happened. But I was very happy for all the people. 378 couples got married in a field in Arizona, and they had a Beatles tribute band, and I heard them sing Here Comes the Sun before the performance, and I got chills and started to cry because I was a Beatles fan, back in the day. And people saw it all over the country in the path going up from down to the northeast, up to the northeast. So I was a little jealous, but I did get to see it, and the sun just came out here. There we go. So to my guests, before we start with the introductions, and I have this absolutely lovely poem I'm going to read about all of you. I want you to put your hands in the shape of the letter L, please. Mark and Ann, I haven't introduced yet, and Sam, make the letter L. And on the count of three, you're going to count of three. You're going to join me in saying hello, L, just like that. Follow my speed. 1, 2, 3. Hello, L. A little draggy, but not bad. Jordan, if you're there, put them down as the third best this year. It's only April, so the year is young. Anyway, LLL is lovely, lanky Laura Legs, our most loyal listener. She lives in Whitestone, New York, and I've been trying to have a fake GoFundMe for her for 5 years now to move her to a place that starts with L, like Louisville or someplace like that. Lexington, Long Beach, Lancaster, Lincoln, Lubbock, Laredo, Little Rock. And I forgot that I had moved to Loudon, Tennessee, because I wanted to move to London, Mark, but I have this habit of tilting my head like this. And the first N in London went upside down, and I ended up in Loudon, which is Loudon. I know, Ann, it's just a really sad story, but I like it here a lot. So anyway, so Laura is still very happily ensconced in Whitestone, New York, but one of these days she'll come and visit me here in Loudon, and we'll just pretend she moved here. So here we go. And at 6:01 p.m., she will email me, and she will tell me what each of you said. Just a little snippet. It's like I know it. It's like a report. She's been doing this for years. And before her, my mom was doing it when she was even in her 90s. She was listening online. My cousin Freddie, who was in his 90s in California, was listening before that. So Laura is in a long line of loyal listeners. Oh, that's good, Laura. I made up another one. Okay, very good. So let me tell you who everybody is. We'll do a little bit about the date. Oh, by the way, it's the 99th day of 2024, Gregorian calendar. Gregory, who was Pope Gregory XIII, didn't like the Julian calendar. I don't think he knocked on the door and said, hey, Julian, it wasn't too good, because back in the day, October 3rd was next to October 15th on the calendar. Can you imagine if you had a birthday in that missing 11 days? What would you do? So Gregory came along, and his mom said, hey, Gregory, what are you going to do about it? And he said, I'm going to put a date in here. I'm going to add a day every 400 years. I'm going to change this, and we'll change the leaps of the days and the years so that the calendar has consecutive days. So that's why we thank one of the early creatives, Gregorian, and I appreciate him. So now let me read my little poem, and just so all of you know, I take your bios. I will just say your names now. Let's see. The speaker order today is we have Ann Charles, we have Mark Morton, and we have Samantha, wants to be called Sam Atzeni. And I input a little bit of an opening line to ChatGPT. I use it, and then I put in all of your bios in their full extent you sent me, and then a little closing line. And I ask it to write an opening monologue poem for me. So that's the AI part. However, Mark looks worried. Mark, I just had a CAT scan, and the doctor, who is 6 foot tall at 6'8" and I'm barely 5'1" now. Never mind. It happens as you I won't even, I just can't. Anyway, he bounded into the room at the hospital. I'm fine. And he said, "Good news. We just found it. You have a brain." So I'm the human with the brain who edited the poem. I just want you all to know. So here we go. When I say your name, please wave, because the audience is waiting for you to wave. So here we go. Upon the Read My Lips stage with passion bright, akaRadioRed, with her Scarlett mic in the live streaming light, there's a couple of rhymes in there, welcomes you, dear audience, for the Pens of Creativity today, with 3 guest creatives bringing cool conversations your way. Ann Charles, wave hello, spent childhood exploring mines, ruins, and more. Now she spices her novel stories with quirky characters galore. Mystery, comedy, romance, supernatural mayhem too. She adds historical treats from South Dakota to the Mayans for you. Ann, I hope you like that.
That was wonderful.
I rent the poems out. You can use it, but you got to pay me rent royalties. Okay. That's
Okay.
That's how I make them. Otherwise, I do the show for free. Mark Morton, passionate wielder of words on the literary stage. That's a tongue twister. In nonfiction narratives and YA dystopia, he will engage. Plus columns on Gastronomica, the Journal of Food and Culture delights. His diverse topics assure the Winnipeg International Writers Festival shines so bright. Mark, I hope that met your... Good. Gastronomical. He's in a restaurant now where he's going to order. We'll find out what he's eating today. Thank you. And Samantha, Sam Atzeni, at her 7th birthday, entered the novelist world, carving paths where her creativity swirled. Then, after years in academia teaching others to write, she co-created Read Furiously Publishing for vast readers' delight. Sam, I hope you like that.
I'm here for it. I love it.
Good. So let me finish. akaRadioRed's The Pens of Creativity. That's an On of 3 episode. Brings storytelling to the fore. We hope you'll watch or listen for our cool conversations and more. So everybody, what'd you think? How'd we do? We get a thumbs up?
That was
good.
2 thumbs up.
Really good.
Like that? Okay. I know some people object to using ChatGPT. And I had an artist recently reprimand me, excoriate me, demean me, and said, "How dare you? I thought you were a real writer. How could you do that?" And I said, "Well, sometimes it's a good starter, and you use it, right? Right? It's nothing wrong with that. But I always add that a human edited it." Now, question, pop quiz. Ann Charles, how long did it take for ChatGPT to return the core of that poem to me after I input the opening, the closing, and all of your bios in full? Ann, how long?
3 seconds.
Sam, how long?
About 2 seconds.
Mark?
1/4 of 1 second.
You're all too smart for this quiz. You know what you're doing. It used to be 3 seconds. And a friend told me to stop saying please and thank you to AI, to ChatGPT. It would get more efficient. But I'm a nice girl from Queens, New York, and we were taught to be polite. I didn't put in the rest of what I was going to say because you know why. And I still say please and thank you. Hello, how are you? Happy afternoon. I give it a lot of schmaltz. I tell it. I just gave stuff away there. So anyway, I continue to be nice to it. And recently, ChatGPT cut down the response time from 3 seconds to about 2.25. So I think all of you just about nailed the time there, and I appreciate it. It's fast. And then it takes me about 5 minutes or so to eyeball it and say, well, there's too many lights and delights and brights in there. We're going to change them and more and galore. We go with all of that. So anyway, thank you all. I'm glad you enjoyed the poem. Now let's get some real bios here. Remember, we're talking in approximately 3-minute sound bites. And I was going to tell you, if you see me doing this, it means you're on camera. I'm not. And it means start to wind down, but don't say, oh my God, Red told me to shut up. That just doesn't work. I usually say that before, but I didn't have a chance. If you see me doing this, it means you got into politics or something terrible that we don't do on the show. I'm cutting your mic and there's a parting gift at the back door and it's not much. Anyway, so yes, I am the green room comedian and I'm still trying to be funny. Used to do stand-up, Mark, and now I just try to be humorous sitting down. It's really a chore some days. What can I tell you? And Charles, so delighted to have you. I'm putting you on full screen speaker view, and I want everybody to take a look at your fabulous room there with the real books, real books that she's written. Okay, and we'd like to know everything you want to compress in 3 minutes to tell us about your life, how you started writing, and what you do. And welcome.
I think, hello, first of all, and I think I might have looked directly into the sun during the eclipse today because my brain just went zip. So I'm going to try to do this 3 minutes the best I can, but I am still a little starstruck about, the whole sun and the moon and all that good stuff. I've been writing for a long time. I didn't start out wanting to write. It just kind of happened when I wanted certain endings to books that weren't there. So I started writing, the endings I wanted, which turned into trying to write a book way back in the late 90s, on pen and paper even. That's how old school, and old I am. And then I just kept trying and started working on writing some romances and submitted to some publishers. And they were just way too nice when they rejected me and told me, keep trying. And I believed them. So I kept going. And through the 2000s, I had kids. I went to college full time. I worked full time, but I still kept writing. And then in 2011, I published not the first book I wrote. It was actually, I think it was the 8th book I wrote, or the 7th, but it was Nearly Departed in Deadwood. And that was the first one I actually published. And from there, it's just been a snowball of continuing to, write and publish. And I'm not super fast. I write long books, 120K. It's a good year if I get 3 done in a year, because that's a lot of time for me. And I have 5 different series. And as you said, mystery, spicy, action adventure, paranormal, or supernatural, depending what you want to call it. And a little bit of romance always, because I started out trying to write romances and that's where I failed. So then I threw in some dead bodies and some ghosts and weird stuff, and it worked out so much better. So I have a lot of books going. I have 5 different series that are ongoing. Some are ongoing faster than others because they demand, more of my time, and the readers want more of them quickly. So, I don't know if you want me to say this, you can find them at my website, rather than me do a long list, and that's AnnCharles.com. Go there, go to the books page, and you can see all the different things. I encourage people to read reviews on the different retailers to see if it's their cup of tea or not. These aren't cozies. I write a little edgier. I always joke, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Not that I have all those in each one, but they're a little bit more along, kind of brain candy fun and crazy.
And Charles, first of all, your website, your name is ANN. There's no E after Ann. I had to say that. Second of all, 2 questions. Do you sleep?
The older I get, the more I do, which is very frustrating because I used to write a lot more, but now I get tired. And I think, what happened to those days of sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, working 2 full-time or a full-time job and writing full-time? Now it's like, if I don't get my 8 hours sleep, I'm tired and I can't write as well. And I was told these days would come long ago from some older author buddies, but I really hope they wouldn't, but they're here. So I do.
Well, welcome. You can see the sun behind me poking in from the upper. We can see the shape of the window at the top of my office. Yes, it'll come and go. And the other question is, how many hours a day do you write on a good solid work day?
On a solid work day, I aim for 2,000 words. And sometimes that can take me 2 to 3 hours because I'm just cooking and the words are flying. And other days it can take 10 hours because it's like a grinding thing where I keep checking back and it's like, oh, I've written 100 more. Oh, gosh, I got to keep going. So it really depends on the day. But once I get into that groove of 2,000 a day, I can maintain that pretty steadily. And I get very irritated when life starts interfering and I'm in the, groove. But typically one of my books takes about, I would say, 3 months to 4 months to write. And then I have a long editing process with multiple levels so that we get it as, clean as we can.
Thank you. Wow, I've been writing my first one for 2 years now. I just keep losing motivation, then I go back and dive in, and then I'm not ready to finish it. I know it's a thing with me. So thank you, Anne. Mark Morton, we're so happy to have you. You can unmute, and whatever we hear in the background in the restaurant on your way back from eclipse viewing, we're so
Yeah.
excited you had that opportunity. Mark, tell us all about you. Welcome.
Okay. Well, the highlight of my life was maybe seeing the eclipse about two 2 hours ago, or an hour and a half ago. It really was astonishing. I did see an eclipse when I was a little kid in Saskatchewan in Canada. But yeah, this was amazing over the Lake Erie. So yeah, I prior to about 2006, I had written and had published by various publishers 4 works of nonfiction. And then my wife and I adopted 4 older children, and so that our writing careers just ground to a halt for about 16 years until they got old enough to be a bit more independent. And then when I thought about writing again, I didn't want to write nonfiction anymore for a couple of reasons. One was I just didn't have that faculty of memory anymore to hold so many facts in my head at the same time. And the other was just having raised kids. I was more interested in fiction, so I wanted to try writing a YA novel. I did. That was published just in February. It's called The Headmasters. And then it took me a year or so, well, no more than that, 2 years to find a publisher for that. And then in the meantime, I started writing a second novel. I finished that one. I'm just in the process of sending it out to some agents now. And I've started a third one. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. I mean, I enjoyed, that's not quite the right word. Raising our kids, adopting and raising our kids was the most meaningful, precious thing my wife and I ever did. But, I'm really enjoying getting back to writing again as well.
Very nice to have you on. I have another show called Next at the Mic that's tomorrow, and I do a roundtable with other hosts on Voice America Radio. And one of
Mhm.
the ladies who's coming on, who's been on before, her name is Mickey, Mikki Shepherd with 1P. And
Mhm.
she has a radio show called Adoption as a Choice.
Mm.
And she's written about her miracle in her life of an adoption, and
Yeah,
that's what she does. I might introduce you to her at some point.
sure. I would be
I
glad.
think that would be a nice meetup there. So, Mark,
Mhm.
very nice. And are you eating? You're in a restaurant, and do they know that you're on a live radio show? Have you told the manager?
No, no, I don't. It's not very busy here right now. I'm not eating anything, but I am drinking a Diet Coke.
Okay, well, we just wanted to know. Just take care of yourself, and
I will.
keep your strength up. Thank you very much, Sam Atzeni. So happy to have you here, Sam. I'm putting you on speaker view. It's your turn in the limelight and with the live streaming light here. We'd love to know who you are and what's your passion for writing. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So I honestly started writing because I can't do anything else. I tried, I cannot do anything else. I just have to write. And I'm so grateful because since I was a kid, I've had friends and family that essentially just I forced them to listen to the stories that I wrote, and they were very patient and they listened to me. And then I went to college and I had a bunch of writing professors who encouraged me and listened to all the nonsense and just pedantic things I would write because I thought I was so clever, and they were very patient with me. So because of all of this encouragement, I just kept going. I studied journalism and professional writing, so I'm kind of that sporadic kind of writer. So I write short stories, I write articles, I write a lot of shorter things, and I'm really, really trying to buckle down and write a collection of something. It's just I get so distracted, and I have to just write something else. But I really do love to write. And even though I don't have a lot of time for it, that's kind of what led me to become a writing professor. And again, they let me do that for 15 years. I have no idea why everyone keeps letting me do things. And then about 9 years ago, we started Read Fiercely Publishing, which was our way to kind of level the playing field of a lot of authors that are rejected from larger publishers just because they're just not fitting in with that mainstream. So we've kind of carved out a little beautiful niche for ourselves with the authors that we have. And usually my day is taking care of a little one, taking care of the cats, taking care of the authors, taking care of the house, taking care of the students. And then if I have time, I sit down and I write something.
I'm trying to remember the order in which you said what you take care of first and last. I think the kids were up in there somewhere. Yes, and then the cats
Yeah.
and the authors. I'm very intrigued. How did you come up with the name Read Furiously? I think it's a fabulous name for a publishing house. Where did that
They
come from, Sam?
Thank you. So one of the things I fell into in college is writing a blog. I had a writing professor at TCNJ who was brilliant, and she kind of taught us to blog when it was a brand new thing. And then I thought, oh, I could just throw things and people will listen to me. So I started writing a book blog, and I would just write about the importance of reading. And I would always sign off, read often, read well, and read furiously, because it was all about passion and excitement. And then when we were coming up with a name for a publisher, my publishing partner, who's also my writing partner, my life partner, my everything partner, and he kind of said, why don't we just call it Read Furiously? Because that's, you already sign off like that. And so that's kind of where the name came from.
Thank you. Sometimes that spontaneous tripping off the tongue of
Yeah.
words and phrases and messages holds a gem, right? And that part of creativity is finding that little tiny bit. David Byrne writes about that it's those
Yeah.
little things that sometimes are circling around us. You put it on a note, you write it to yourself, you put it in a blog somewhere. I was teaching a lot of things for Great Neck Adult Ed years ago on Long Island, and one of my classes was beginning blogging, and I had a woman who wanted to write about aging in a humorous way. And she started writing blog posts about it. And I encouraged her. She was a very good writer, very good artist as well. And then years later, she took all of those and turned them into a book. Little self-published book called Raging Against Aging, and it was her blogs. And I was so happy that she saw the concept of collecting thoughts a little bit. A blog is like a chapter at a time, and she put them together, and the book was really cool, really adorable. So thank you all for your bios. I am very honored to have all of you here, and I have to do a shout out to the man in Canada who introduced you all to me, Mickey Mickelson at Creative Edge PR, who brings me wonderful authors. Most of them are horror authors. I didn't say horrible authors, horror authors. And I don't think there's too much horror here, although Anne said she throws in a little sex and dead bodies to spice things up. So yes, so thank you very much, Mickey Mickelson. Shout out to Mickey. He's a man. So let's go to the part of the show where I've asked each of you to please send me a quote from a fictional character in a movie or a TV show or a song lyric. And let's see what you sent me. And you're going to take about 3 minutes and tell me how the quote relates to your creativity or what you do to be creative. So Ann Charles has sent us a quote from King Theoden, Theoden, played by Bernard Hill, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, a 2002 epic high fantasy adventure film directed by Peter Jackson. Woohoo! Elijah Wood was in it, Ian McKellen, Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Astin, Kate Blanchett. My goodness, does it get any better than this? Bernard Hill has the distinction of being the only actor to have appeared in more than one film that won 11 Academy Awards. I don't know if you knew this, Anne, for his roles in The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and Titanic. Very, very interesting. So here is the quote you have picked, and it's 6 words. I like short quotes. Here we go. If anybody else sent me a long quote, it's not a problem. I just like short quotes. They're cool. How did it come to this? Oh, Anne Charles, please fill in the blanks for us. What does this have to do with what you do and how you create? Anne?
Like I said, unlike Sam, I did not want to be a writer. I had a lot of other dreams, starting with crazy stuff like a camel jockey. I thought that would be really romantic. I don't know why.
Wait, don't step on the line. Wait, we all have to, everybody look puzzled. Mark, camel jockey, Sam, come on. Everybody look, come on. Okay, Anne, you can continue now. Sorry to interrupt.
I even for 9th grade, I drew it as a paint and then painted it for my art project of what we wanted to be. And my really good friend, she drew herself as a social worker. And I was like, what are you doing carrying a briefcase? Look, I'm going to be a camel jockey. And I didn't even realize at the time they didn't really let women be camel jockeys. I was just excited that the idea of I could try this, and it was that adventure, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll be a flight attendant and I'll fly all over the world. Maybe I'll be a lawyer and try to help some of these people, and boy, that changed. It just kept switching around, but the whole time I kept reading, and loving books, of course. And it was in my mid-20s when I, was like, this is like the 4th, 5th book in a row where I just didn't like the ending, and I'm going to write something the way I want to do it and with the ending I want, and then I'll be happy. And it was no good. But like I said earlier, someone encouraged me to keep going. So I did. And it just kept going and growing. And even with the different books I have, the different series, I wrote the first in my Jackrabbit Junction mystery series, Dance of the Winnebagos. And I handed it into my agent at that time. And she said, "This is great. Where's book 2?" And I said, "What do you mean book 2? This is book 1. This is the book." And she said, "No, this is a series. I can already tell." And I, what? So sure enough, I just, book 6 came out a little over a year ago in that series. And Deadwood, it was going to just kind of be a one-time deal. And the editor of that point said, again, "Do you have the next book in progress?" And I'm like, "Where are you guys coming up with these extra books? I don't know what you're talking about." But, I'm working on book 14 in that series. So I think of that, and I often say it in relation, when it comes to this career, that I didn't expect to do this for a living. And it's not something, you really should go into it gung-ho, and this is what I want to do. And this is because it takes a lot of work. You all know there's a lot of marketing. I didn't really ever want to learn about marketing. I didn't want to have to do social media as much as I do any of this. So I often say, how did it come to this? It's like, oh, what am I doing here? I know, I was going to serve drinks on a plane. This seemed wonderful. So it's really, I also do it with my children. How did it come to this? In their room, looking at it as messy as it might be, or whatever. But I really think that line is so fitting for so many things in our life. You're doing it, you're going and you're creating and you're doing all this stuff. And then every now and then you stop and catch your breath and you look back and you think, how did I get to this place and where I'm at? Oh my gosh, this is amazing or horrible, whatever you think,
I think, Anne, I'm going to print that sign and one word on each piece of paper and make a banner and put it here in my broadcast studio and say, how did it come to this? I have wondered. I was very pleased. An upcoming guest on this show who I met at the Publicity Summit recently invited me to be on his podcast. Now, I don't call this a podcast you're on today. This is live streaming radio, kids. This is not edited. This is not varnished. This is not clipped and abridged. And, oh, I didn't like this. And she didn't, I just was on my nose and it just popped up on Zoom. I didn't know Zoom heard my Kleenex in the microphone, but there I was. That's the way it is. C'est ça, as the French say. So, Anne, how did it come to this? I like that a lot. I really do. Thank you very much for the quote. Morton, we're moving on. This is an interesting adjunct to what Anne just shared. You have picked from a British black comedy film, 1987, called With Nail and I, written and directed by somebody named Bruce Robinson, loosely based on his life in London in the late 60s. Here's the plot. Unemployed actors with Nail and I is it's not just a pronoun, it's a name portrayed by Richard Grant and Paul McGann, share a flat in Camden Town in 1969. They need a holiday. That's called a vacation here in the U.S. They obtain the key to a country cottage in the Lake District belonging to Withnail's eccentric, that's always a problem, eccentric Uncle Monty. The weekend holiday is less recuperative than expected, and that's all I know about it. Something to do with, yes. And Ralph Brand is Danny, the drug dealer. There, we got our stuff added in. Okay, so it has tragedy and comedy, period music, quotable lines. It's been described as one of Britain's biggest cult films. That tells us a lot. Here's the quote Mark has picked. I'm sure there were a zillion you could have. We've gone on holiday by mistake. I didn't even attempt a really good accent, Mark. I apologize. If you want to replicate the quote in the film, you can. Mark, regale us. What does this have to do with what you do? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I do really, really like that movie for many, many reasons, because it is tragic and zanily funny all at the same time, and it's full of pathos. The reason I like that quotation is because it kind of feels like it describes my life. Like we've gone on holiday by mistake, and I feel like I've blundered into so many things, and I don't mean blundered and things turned out horribly. It's just like things have just happened to me, and I guess I've rolled with them, and they've turned out well for the most part. And yeah, I think that's, I mean, one has to have a certain level of privilege, and I don't mean that I'm wealthy or anything like that, but I'm living in North America, and so that in itself gives me some privilege. And one then has the opportunity often to kind of take something that might be a blunder, might have been a mistake, and kind of turn it into something else. So I wouldn't say that that's become a mantra for me, but I can certainly see elements of that in my own life.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. And I appreciate the introduction to the movie. I might have to try and find it somewhere. Sam, let's see what you brought us. You brought us, oh, do 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 do. Da da. Does that give anybody a clue? I'm terrible at trying to do movie soundtracks. Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, played by Christian Bale, The Dark Knight, 2008 superhero film. Is there anything else more to say about it? Directed by Christopher Nolan. He wrote the screenplay with his brother Jonathan. I didn't know that. There we go. Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Heath Ledger, Gary Oldman, Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllenhaal, who doesn't love her, and Morgan Freeman. How could a movie not be great with Morgan Freeman in it? Seriously. Here's the quote she has picked from probably 15 zillion quotes you could have picked from that movie, Sam. Sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded. Oh, Samantha, Sam, Atzeni, tell us, what does this have to do with what you create? Go ahead.
Well, I picked this because comic books seem to be always. So in grad school, I wrote my master's thesis on comic book culture, which was one of the hardest things I had ever had to write, the death of Captain America. So I had never read comics. I had never engaged with them. And then I taught comics in writing class for 15 years. And then the first title Read Furiously ever published was our comic book series, The Mother Principle. So all of my professional challenges have centered around comic books. And I used to teach The Dark Knight. This is a movie very near and dear to me. I love it. It's so brilliant. And I love it because it's a superhero movie and it's not a superhero movie. And in that scene, Batman basically makes this decision to change the narrative. And, if anyone's seen it, we know the Joker, has really ruined Gotham. And, he makes the decision to be a villain and to change the story for the good of the people of Gotham. And one of the things I always talk about with my students is, as writers, we have to take that risk too. We don't always have to feel like we have to do what people think we need to do. Sometimes we have to just think about what does the writing need and make that our priority. And I also always equate this with writing fiction. Sometimes, yes, the truth is great, but when you're writing fiction, sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded and give them something that is true, but slightly true, but not true, but can kind of play around with those lines a little bit. And since a lot of what I prefer to do is write fiction, again, journalism background, but fiction is where my heart is. And I really do feel that when someone is holding a work of fiction in their hands, there is a leap of faith on the writer's part and also on the reader's part. So I try to reward anyone who reads what I write with just this idea that you're in for a ride. Buckle up, but we're in it together. and that's okay. So, and also it's just the coolest way, I think, to leave a room, because as soon as he says that, he kind of like zooms off, and Batman definitely knows the coolest ways to leave a room.
Yes, he does, doesn't he? Thank you all for the quotes. I appreciate that very much. I've been using this, shall we say, icebreaker. Some people told me they call that for years. I even use this method on my business shows where we're talking about deep topics like the future of manufacturing and artificial intelligence. I force them to give me movie quotes and TV quotes and relate it to those topics. And you'd be amazed at how creative you get. Highly intellectual people who are analysts and serial entrepreneurs and inventors and innovators and ideators to distill what they want to say into a 3-minute comment about a fictional movie character. It's very interesting. One of the favorites is You Can't Handle the Truth by Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. Another favorite is like my mama always said, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get from Forrest Gump and all kinds of things. There was a quote from Ferris Bueller as well. So anyway, very interesting. So thank you all for playing along. Thank you very much. You all won a door prize. Mickey will tell you what it is. Mickey, are you listening? Okay, let's go to the part of the show where I've asked you each for 4 statements about your creativity. And I'm going to pick at least one. Don't have to look for it. I will read it and ask you to unpack it. And here's the deal. I'm going to start with one from Anne. This is interesting. And if either Sam and or Mark want to comment on anything. I think you all have 10 fingers. I don't want to malign anybody here, but if you do, wiggle one of the polite fingers, and that means not the one in the middle, at me, and I will see you. That's why we do it on Zoom. I used to have to listen for people on the phone when I did radio on the phone for 20 years. It was hard to hear when somebody was lifting, although I could tell when they were holding that finger up, Mark. It was, implied in the way the semicolon ended the paragraph. It's like, what are they saying? I don't know. Anyway, so I will read if you have any comments, just a 1-minute comment. So let's go around the table here. Anne says, I am creative by nature, asking myself, what if? And writing the answer I come up with on the page in a story. This is so brief and to the point, and it's probably loaded with meaning. Anne Charles, please take about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and tell us, what does this mean for you, please?
What if? So many writers know this is how it starts. I think especially with fiction. What if this, person likes to dress like a bat and has all kinds of money and has all these toys, and wanted to stop crime. It's the basis for so many stories, at least for me. What if there was a single mom? She had 2 twin kids. The father was never in the picture, and she moved to Deadwood, South Dakota, and she needed to sell houses. She's got 3 months to sell a house or she's out of a job, and she's through 2 months with no sales. And the houses she's starting to find are haunted. But what if she can't see the ghosts, but everybody else can? Will she be skeptic? Will she believe it? Will she follow along just to sell houses? And that's how the Deadwood mystery series that I write started. I had 2 little kids. I wasn't a single mom, fortunately, but it was a small town, hard living, not many jobs. It's tough to make money. What would this be like for this woman? And how funny can we make this as she doesn't see the ghosts around her and other people do, So what if is, to me, such an important part of telling a fun story, of giving it a seed, if you will. Elevator pitches. What if this happens? That kind of a thing. I did the same thing with my Jackrabbit series. What if there was this RV park down in Arizona, which we all know, know anything about Arizona. There's RV parks in the winter. And a woman goes down there with her grandfather, and he doesn't want her there, but she's there to stop him from finding a gold digger. And what if she stumbles across a human bone in the desert and starts pursuing where the rest of the body is? So you can, have fun with it that way. And I think that when I'm stuck in a scene, when I'm stuck trying to figure out what comes next, that what if comes back. What if this happens? And it can make a story. It can just change the landscape so much. A major turning point can happen because of a what if.
Thank you. Very powerful. Mark or Sam, you don't have to, but anybody does this work for you? Either one of you use this method? Sam, you're nodding. You have to say something. Come on, give me 60 seconds here. What do you think?
I loved everything about that. I was nodding because yes, yes to all of it. It's a level of magical thinking. And that's where we have to trust the process, because what if can get out of hand, and we kind of secretly want it to, because that's where the best ideas are. So yes to all of it.
Interesting. That's where the best ideas are. Mark is nodding. Come on, unmute. Give me something
Yeah,
here, Mark.
yeah, no, that resonates with me as well. Like, I guess I would say that all 3 of my novels could be described as speculative. And, what does speculative mean other than, speculating on what if, some small number of things were a little different about our world? How would things unfold differently? So, yeah, I really like that aspect of fiction.
Thank you very much, Anne. I'll add a little comment from my side. When I was in New York years ago, I grew up on Long Island in Queens, and then moved to Great Neck, blah, blah, blah. And I was, believe it or not, studying comedy. I had my own comedy troupe on Long Island for a while, Borders bookstores and small clubs downtown and public libraries. It was interesting. I had a troupe, but I studied improv at the same time. And I studied with some interesting people like Michael Gelman from Chicago Second City. And at one point, I remember sitting in a room with other students, and they said to us, define who your character is, the character you're going to play in a skit, in a sketch, in a plot. Who are they? And we had to write a profile very quickly. Where'd they grow up? What kind of shoes do they wear? What do they have for breakfast? What if they were a real person? How would they talk? What did they read? Where did they go to school? What was their favorite subject? So in a way, it was a what if this character were a real person? who would they be? But I don't think, Anne, they took us into what if and gave us a scene. What if this character walks outside and finds out the street on 42nd and Madison has turned into an ice skating rink because it was this huge ice? And what would they do? Would they slide on their shoes? Would they say, oh, well, I'm going to invent a pair of magical virtual ice skates? What would they do? Would they start a selling thing on, yeah, hot chocolate for everybody, go skating? And I'm making this up, but we never took it quite that far. But when we performed as those characters, the improv scenes gave us mentally, what if, what would that person say? What would that character say? So it comes across in many different ways. Thank you, Anne. That was very much appreciated. Mark, I'm going to you. I picked your statement number 2. This is interesting. You say creativity means trusting myself, trusting that where my imagination is taking me is the right direction. Sam likes this one. Sometimes this can be hard and requires a leap of faith. It reminds me of the movie Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where he has to step from the side of the cliff onto an invisible bridge. But if it's not really there, he'll plummet to his death. But if he takes a chance, he doesn't take a chance, he'll fail in his quest. So creativity means trusting myself. Mark, give us a couple of minutes on this. This is interesting. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's true not just to being an artist or a writer. I've known professional athletes who have said the same thing, that if they want to perform at the top of their game, they have to believe that they are the best baseball player or best tennis player or whatever in the world. There's something what's the word, like heuristic about it, where the belief itself takes you in that direction. It moves you toward that goal. And yeah, I certainly find that about writing, because realistically speaking, doesn't really make a lot of sense sometimes to sit down and decide to write a novel. I don't think it's ever a good idea, at least not for me, to say, I want to write a novel that's going to sell a whole bunch of things, because I just would think it's probably highly unlikely that that's going to happen. And I therefore wouldn't end up doing it. So I tend to write for myself, and I tend to kind of trust that what I will write, if I follow my own imagination, I will end up kind of writing the book that I would want to read. And to me, that's the way that I write books, is, what book would I want to read, and how can I get that written?
Thank you very much. I wrote 3 romantic comedy plays years ago, and I directed, I coached the actors. It was done with community actors, and I was doing several public access shows on Long Island, and I had never directed anybody, coached anybody. And years later, I was doing something called a cold reading salon when I was living in Durham, North Carolina. We had a very active group in our big clubhouse, we called it, this 35,000 square foot gorgeous modern thing. And I decided to start what I called a cold reading salon. I think you'll all get a kick out of this. So I printed out a bunch of Roald Dahl. These were all free on the internet. I didn't violate anybody's copyright. Monologues, dialogues, little scenes. And I included a couple of scenes from my plays in there. Put them on a table. 25 people signed up, and I put them on a table with right on top, it said in big letters, monologue, dialogue, scene. And so people knew. I said, just go to the table, pick something. You got 5 minutes. So 20 people glommed on this table, and they picked something. And I said, you got 5 minutes to do your own cold read and think about how you're going to interpret the scene. It actually was an interesting concept. It was a blast. But somebody picked one of the scenes from my play, and I had forgotten I put it in there. And they did a cold read, 2 people of 2 characters. And I said, that's pretty damn good. I wonder who the author is. That was a really good, well-written scene. And I said, oh my God, it's mine. It was such a revelation years later that, and I will tell you, when I was writing those plays, I'd write from 1 till 4 in the morning. I got something, playwriting 101. I downloaded from the internet, what kind of type to use and how many lines to space and how you set the scene, the characters, the everything. And I just kept, and it just poured for 3 or 4 nights. And I wrote a whole play in 3 nights. It was just fabulous. So, but the characters spoke to me. They told me what they wanted to say. And Mark, it was probably somebody read them recently. Somebody saw my plays. I recorded them all. I did put them on TV and recorded them all, and they're all on my Vimeo channel. And somebody watched them recently, and he said, I hear you in all of those lines.
Oh, neat.
Nobody ever told me that before. It was interesting. Little semi-autobiographical, biographical or wishful thinking or wishful not thinking. Let's put it that way. Thank you very much. Anybody comments on trusting? Sam or Anne, any comments for what Mark said before I added my own diatribe in there? Anything? Trusting yourself? Anne, go ahead.
I just was telling my son this when it came to getting a job, his first job. I said, one of the things that it's really hard as a writer to put yourself out there in front of people and feel like, you didn't write something crazy that's not really that great, to feel like you belong in the room. And I said, one of the things I was told long ago that it made me think of this when Mark was talking about this was the old fake it till you make it. You're trusting in yourself is really what that says. Trust in yourself and pretend that it is really great, even, and it probably is, but fake it in your mind so that you can stand up there and stand behind your words. So it just made me think of that saying that I just told him, pretend you need the job and you got the job and you're going to do this.
There you go. That wish board. What do they call that? The vision board? Yeah.
Right.
Yep. See yourself. Law of attraction and all that good stuff. Sam, anything you want to add before I move on? Because I've got a statement queued up for you, Sam.
I just always think of, I guess because it's National Poetry Month, but I always think of that poem that's titled Constantly Risking Absurdity. And it's about the poet constantly risking absurdity. And I think even though it is about poems and poetry and all that, I think any writer is doing that. We are truly engaging in a very absurd practice and hoping it pays off. And then when it does, we forget how hard it is and we do it again and again. Again, and we're kind of, it's almost like we can't stop after the first time because it's just such an extraordinary experience.
It is. It's addictive in a good way, we hope, right? There we go. Thank you. Let's get to a statement from Sam. I'm picking two. One I'm just going to throw in here because I just like the way you said it, but it's not where I want you to go. Sam says the idea that only certain people are creative never made any sense to me. So let's just leave that one on the table. But here's what I want you to talk about. You say, for me, the best and worst, in air parentheses, best and worst part of being creative is taking risks. Important to trust the process, but the process can be so incredibly difficult. Taking risks allows me to think outside of myself in a process that thrives on recursion. For those of people who don't know, can you tell us what recursion means to you? And then just take a couple minutes and unpack the statement for us. Sam, go ahead.
Well, recursion is just revising over and over again until you're caught in that cycle. I mean, this is something I had to get comfortable talking about with my students because when you have a lot of first-time writers, they panic and they don't want to take risks. And a big thing I hear a lot with my students are, just tell me what to write. Tell me exactly what to write, and then I'll get the A. And I think we have to remember that the best part is taking risks, but the worst part is taking risks because we have to acknowledge that they don't always work. And sometimes they're really terrible. And I've taken a lot of big swings and they've really failed. And you have to be okay with that. You really do have to be okay with that. And I mean, with revision, we can just go back and fix it, but sometimes we don't want to. Sometimes I've written things that make me laugh. And I think to myself, this is so funny. And then I show it to someone and they're like, I don't get it. And I'm like, oh, it was only funny to me. Okay, never mind. I'm cracking myself up. Yes, you had to be there in the room alone.
Sam, do you ever trust in your publishing? Do you ever trust that you're picking a writer who will succeed? And I don't know what the measurement is for success. Is it the number of books? Is it how many good reviews they get? You don't need to go into all of that. But do you ever trust yourself with picking somebody to publish who shouldn't have been published? That's probably a very harsh, and I don't mean it to be unkind, but talking about risk and trust, and Mark talked about trust also. Sam, what's the process for saying my company, Read Furiously, wants to publish this person? What do you think?
It definitely has to be different. It has to be something that we haven't read before. And there are so many writers out there that are writing things that are not cookie cutter. I am so spoiled because every single one of our authors, I find them brilliant. I trust them completely. And even when I'm in an editorial session with them and I say, I trust you, they go, you do? Like completely? I could just, yes, I trust you completely. I'm big fans of them. So if I read something and I say, I'm a big fan of this person, then I will do anything to publish. And it's hard in publishing to know what success is. It's so hard because we want to all be bestsellers and it doesn't always work out. But I think success with our publishing is having writers that care about what they've written and that they're proud of it and they want to tell the world they wrote it. And there's readers who want to tell the world about it too. But I'm so spoiled because I trust every single one of our writers. I'm so floored by how brilliant every single one of them are. I can't believe I get to do this every day. I feel like I trick somebody into letting me do this.
Believe it. And anything about risks or Mark, and any taking risks? What do you think?
Mark, you can go. You raised
Mark,
your finger.
Mark, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Like, I like both of those words, revision and recursion, that Sam was using. And I think there's a nice distinction between them, because revision, means to look again or to see back, to look back. But recursion literally or etymologically means to run back. And to me, that's how it feels like when I'm working on a piece of writing. It's not just that I'm looking back at it. I actually have to kind of almost physically run back and work through it again. It's like you're running the race again. So I like the word recursion even more than the word revision.
Thank you. I had a feeling Sam chose that for a reason. And anything you did want to add? I'm not going to put pressure on you. Nope, you good?
No, I'm just going to be really quick.
Yeah.
I really love what you tell your students. I took creative writing classes to get my degree, and I had a teacher that showed us his books and then said, write short stories like what I have here. And so he would give us themes, and I would take a theme and I would write genre fiction because that's what I write. That's what comes out. And I would turn those in and oh boy, we would go head to head. But he had to give me good grades because I hit the theme and I was doing what was asked, but I was doing it my way, differently. And he didn't always like it. But I kept those as a source of pride with everyone that I got a good grade on, because it was like I went against the establishment. I did something my own way. And it was still a success, even though it didn't follow what he had initially wanted. So I love that you're telling your students, do something different, go out there, because we weren't being told that. We were told, write like this and like me. And I was often a little bit in trouble for not doing it, like he wanted. So that was really cool to hear.
There was your risk. Bravo. See, this is why I like the roundtable. I used to do interviews one-on-ones, 20, 30 minutes with an author and then another one, and then we'd all talk together. And I discovered that having the roundtable conversation where we share thoughts and insights, we don't have to agree with each other, but just bouncing things off of each other is always a worthwhile conversation. And I'll tell you all that I'm currently participating in what's called the PAD Challenge. That's Poem a Day for the month of April, and also in November, sponsored by Writer's Digest. And the editor, one of the senior editors there is Mark Lee Brewer. And every day, I think around 3 a.m. Eastern, he posts a prompt on a different page on Disqus, disq.us. You have to join it, but to leave comments, but there's no cost to it. And we typically get a Wednesday morning prompt every month, except April and November are PAD, Poem a Day. And there's no obligation and there's no contest, but we get a thumb up. I've never seen a thumb down, and you have a place to leave comments for people. Well, when we only do it once a week on Wednesdays, you just live for that day. You get up early, you just 3 minutes. Oh my goodness, I'm not done. Anyway, I've noticed this time, and other people have noticed, that all of a sudden people who've never participated, at least not in the 2 years I've been in the group, on Wednesdays, decided they want to write a poem a day on every day in April. And when we used to have just about 15 or 20 of us and we knew each other's work and we comment, now it takes an hour to read through all the poems. I have to get up at 5 o'clock every morning to get a poem post. And then it goes down to the bottom and then I check whose poem was the best, how many heads up, how many thumbs up. It's just interesting. But if you're looking for that, I just want to do a couple more things before we go. So in music history, April 8th, the year 2000, April 8th, there was a Saturday Night Live skit that became very famous where Blue Oyster Cult was recording Don't Fear the Reaper. And Christopher Walken said, more cowbell from Will Ferrell. And It was a catchphrase that was born on this day in history in 2000. Also, on this day in 1963, Frank Sinatra hosted the 35th Academy Awards. Who knew? At the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, Lawrence of Arabia won the Best Picture. Henry Mancini and Johnny Mercer got Best Song for Days of Wine and Roses from the film. And on this day in 64, the Supremes recorded Where Did Our Love Go?, which became their breakout hit. I thought that was interesting. Celebrity birthdays: John Schneider, country musician and actor. He was Bo Duke on the Dukes of Hazzard. He is 63 today. Happy birthday, John Schneider. Robin Wright, you all know her. Forrest Gump's True Love, Jenny in 94, in so many movies. And she was in House of Cards, which I stopped watching after the news about Mr. Spacey. She was married to Sean Penn. She's 57. And let's see, today I always do some social media people you've never heard of. Chad. That's two names separately. Chad, 26 years old. Is a girl who has blue hair currently. She has 2.4 million subscribers. She does comedy and commentary and all kinds of TikTok movies and everything. And her series flagship is called A Twinge of Cringe. And she has black, blue, and red hairstyles, and it changes. We have a happy birthday to Kelly Ann Erdman on TikTok, who's 31 today. 9 million followers. She's a professional dancer on NBC's live production of Hairspray, and she also danced in the Goldbergs, Mighty Men, and Jane the Virgin. And on Insta, we have Matilda Yerf, DJERF, who's 26. She only has 3 million followers. So sorry. Model, blogger, and influencer in travel and fashion. Today is National All Is Ours Day. Go out and look. Oh, you are. Go out and look at the beautiful nature in the sun. And if you saw everything, just say thank you. It's Draw a Bird Day. It's International Kids Yoga Day. It's International Feng Shui Awareness Day and Zoo Lovers Day. April is month of straw hats, jazz appreciation, poetry, dog appreciation, adopt a ferret, and a greyhound month and guitar month. Let's leave that alone. And I have to do my closing here. In 2014, I had a list of the top 10 tips for women on my radio shows. And I think you'll appreciate this. Sam, Mark, not sure. And the number one tip was aspire to be Barbie. The biatch has everything. That was in 2014. Okay, here we go. Closing. Life is short. Don't go away afterwards. Life is short. Break the rules. Forgive quickly. Nah. Kiss slowly. Yeah. Love truly. Everybody join me in a quick laugh. Uncontrollable. 1, 2, 3. Don't hurt yourself. And never regret anything that made you smile. Work like you don't need the money because nobody else really cares. Maybe they do. Dance like no one's watching. When I was teaching disco and high heels, yeah, they watched. Sing like nobody's listening. Love like you've never been hurt. We all have. Let your heart open up and regrow and recursive it and let it come back. Money talks. Chocolate sings. La. And last but not least, I stole this line from a host years ago. Thank you for turning me on. Thank you to Mark. Thank you to Ann. Thank you to Sam. Don't go away. Everybody wave goodbye to LinkedIn, to Facebook, to YouTube, and to Voice America. Jordan, are we out?
Thank you.
Jordan.